Imagine a $200 million bridge project coming to a complete just grinding halt because of a single like $5 misplaced bolt.
Hidden right behind a concrete pillar, usually.
Yeah, exactly. And, in the world of massive infrastructure, chaos isn't the exception. It is the default setting.
Oh, absolutely.
Because usually when we look at a finished skyscraper or a suspension bridge, we have this expectation of, I don't know, absolute flawless precision.
Right, you see the steel, the glass.
The perfect lines, yeah. And we instinctively assume it was always this clean binary process. Like the blueprint says, this goes here, so it magically goes there.
It looks inevitable once it's finished.
Yeah.
Which is, frankly, a dangerous illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we crave that sense of order, but it totally masks the reality of how these structures actually come into existence. I mean, you're dealing with an ecosystem where the variables are staggering.
Or like weather delays, I'm guessing.
Weather delays, supply chain collapses, thousands of distinct materials. Plus, you have dozens of specialized subcontractor teams who have never even met before.
All trying to execute complex engineering over the roar of heavy machinery.
Exactly. It's organized chaos.
Which brings us directly to you listening right now. Because whether you are managing a diverse team at work or navigating a massive corporate restructuring, or honestly, just trying to bring some systematic order to a chaotic project in your own life.
You're dealing with complex, competing variables.
Right. You are trying to build something that doesn't collapse under pressure. So welcome to today's deep dive, where our core mission is figuring out exactly how an industry known for massive scale and like constant friction actually manages to build things that stand the test of time.
And to crack that code, we are pulling insights from a really foundational text on the subject. It's called Foundations of Total Quality Management in Construction.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I know the phrase total quality management or TQM, it can instantly sound like dry corporate jargon.
Oh, it absolutely sounds like a mandatory HR seminar.
Right, the kind you just sleep right through.
Right.
But when you look at the actual framework laid out here, it's not that at all. It is a fascinating, almost ruthless blueprint for achieving absolute precision.
And surviving the inherent chaos of any massive undertaking. What's fascinating here is the core premise that quality is never an accident.
You don't just stumble into a perfectly built 70-story high-rise.
No, definitely not. TQM is an aggressive, holistic methodology. It's about embedding, uncompromising quality principles into the DNA of every single phase of a project.
From the very beginning, right?
Right, from the initial geotechnical planning, straight through the messy execution, and even into long-term maintenance. It is a system completely designed to eliminate the guesswork.
So to really understand how TQM takes a muddy, disorganized construction site and forces it to operate like a ticking watch, we need to look at the underlying mechanics.
The structural DNA, basically.
Exactly. Like, how do you prevent that $50 million mistake? The methodology relies on 5 key principles. But rather than just listing them off, let's look at how they actually function as a defense mechanism against failure. Let's start with this idea of a process-centric approach.
Right. So in traditional construction, people focus purely on the end result. Like, did the wall get built?
Right.
But the process-centric approach shifts the focus entirely to how the wall gets built. You are mapping out the workflow meticulously.
Wait, so like in a commercial building project, you use process mapping not just to see who is doing what, but to find the microscopic bottlenecks.
Yes, before they compound. It is essentially treating the project like a circulatory system.
Yeah.
You are actively looking for the arterial blockages.
Oh, I see. So it's a diagnostic tool. Like if you map the process and realize that the structural steel always arrives, 2 days after the crane is rented.
You aren't just reacting to the delay.
Right. You are redesigning the procurement process so that specific sequence of events can never happen again.
Precisely. And that transitions us seamlessly into the next principle, which is continuous improvement. Because mapping the process only fixes today's problems.
Okay.
If you want to fix tomorrow's, you have to fundamentally change the culture of how a company handles post-project data.
I mean, it's like baking a massive multi-tiered wedding cake, right? You can't just throw ingredients in a bowl.
No, you need workflow planning.
You need workflow planning, temperature checks, and you have to learn from past collapsed tiers, like those lessons learned meetings, the source details.
Exactly.
They mentioned a construction company finishing a massive highway project and then sitting down to review what worked. If using prefabricated concrete components saved them 3 weeks, they officially adopt that for all future highway projects.
That's the ideal scenario, yes.
But honestly, in the real world, how often do those meetings just turn into a room full of people pointing fingers? Or, hiding their mistakes so they don't get fired?
Well, that is the exact trap traditional management falls into. A culture of blame guarantees that critical errors just get buried in the concrete.
Wow, yeah.
So TQM combats this by shifting the focus from who failed to where did the process fail. If a mistake happens, the assumption isn't that the worker is incompetent.
It's that the system allowed the mistake to occur.
Right. That psychological safety net is really the only way genuine continuous improvement can happen.
Which brings up the workers themselves. The methodology leans heavily on employee involvement, but how does that actually look on the ground? You can't just put a suggestion box on a chaotic site.
Right. And expect the iron workers to drop in management tips. No.
Yeah.
It is far more aggressive than a suggestion box.
Yeah.
You cannot mandate quality from a corporate office.
You have to enforce it on the ground.
Exactly. The source highlights large infrastructure projects where project managers conduct workshops. But these aren't lectures. They are designed to give workers actual ownership.
Oh, so TQM empowers the people swinging the hammers to, flag safety concerns, or even halt a process if the standards aren't being met.
Yes. Because the executives analyzing spreadsheets in an air-conditioned trailer, they don't know that a specific brand of masonry saw is overheating.
Right, and slowing down the bricklayers. The mason knows it.
And under TQM, that mason is expected to elevate that data point immediately, which feeds directly into the fourth principle, data-driven decision-making.
Okay, so we aren't relying on a foreman's gut feeling anymore.
No, contractors are running advanced project management software to track key performance indicators, KPIs, things like cost overruns, defect rates, supply chain velocity.
I want to pause on that because tracking data on a construction site sounds like a nightmare. How are they processing all this without slowing the actual building down?
By integrating predictive analytics, the algorithms process the daily inputs from the site. Let's say the data shows that electrical work in Sector B is consistently 20% behind schedule.
Management doesn't just go yell at the electricians to work faster.
No, the algorithm triggers a reallocation of heavy machinery or personnel across the site based on hard, objective metrics. It completely removes the emotion from resource allocation.
That's incredible. And the final piece of the puzzle is customer focus.
Yes, and it is the anchor for the other four. The framework demands that meeting or exceeding client needs drives every single decision.
Like what?
Well, in residential construction, for example, TQM companies don't just hand the client a set of blueprints and say, see you in a year.
Right.
They engage the client throughout the design phase with continuous feedback loops.
Oh, because you want to avoid that catastrophic moment where the foundation is poured, the framing is up, and the client walks onto the site and says, actually, I want an open concept kitchen right where that load-bearing wall is.
Exactly. By enforcing those early feedback loops, you are actively preventing incredibly costly late-stage deviations.
That makes a lot of sense.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these 5 principles, process-centric workflow, continuous improvement, employee involvement, data-driven decisions, and customer focus, they are an interconnected ecosystem of accountability.
And if you remove one,
The entire structure becomes vulnerable to the chaos we talked about earlier.
okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because I need to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
I'm looking at this immense web of bureaucracy. You have thousands of billable hours being spent on lessons learned workshops. You are buying enterprise-level software to track KPIs, and you're pulling foremen off the scaffolding to map out circulatory systems on whiteboards. In an industry with notoriously razor-thin margins, how does a project manager justify that upfront cost? Does this actually move the needle on the bottom line, or is this just an incredibly expensive way to make the corporate office feel in control?
That's a fair question, but you're looking at the upfront cost and ignoring the hemorrhage. It sounds expensive to implement, yes. But the data systematically proves that TQM is fundamentally about risk survival.
Risk survival.
Yes. The margins in construction are thin, specifically because of the invisible costs of rework and waste that TQM eliminates.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. Where does the actual cost efficiency come in?
Let's look at the just-in-time inventory method highlighted in the methodology. In a major urban environment, say downtown Manhattan,
Okay.
a staging area for construction materials can cost tens of thousands of dollars a day in permits and leasing.
Right, because it's like grocery shopping, you know? If you buy a month's worth of vegetables, half of it rots before you can use it. You want just what you need for dinner tonight to avoid waste.
That's a perfect analogy. You can't just dump steel beams on the sidewalk for a month.
Exactly. Every square foot is premium real estate.
So a company utilizing TQM doesn't buy all their materials up front and store them in a warehouse or on-site, risking damage, theft, or weather degradation.
Oh, wow.
They optimize their process mapping so tightly that the flatbed trucks carrying the steel arrive at the exact hour the crane is scheduled to lift it into place.
The material goes straight from the truck into the sky.
Yes, they bypass the storage phase entirely. That slashes overhead costs massively and reduces material waste to near zero. But that level of logistical cost efficiency is just one lever.
What's the leverage on the actual building quality, though? Because if you are moving that fast, doesn't quality suffer?
Actually, the data points in a completely different direction. Because of the process-centric approach, TQM integrates rigorous quality checks at every single microscopic stage, rather than relying on a final inspection.
Give me an example.
Imagine a residential build. Without TQM, an electrician runs the wiring, the drywall goes up, it gets painted, and then the city inspector arrives. If the inspector finds a code violation on a wall,
You are tearing down finished, painted drywall. You are paying a crew to rip it out. You're paying the electrician to rewire it. And then you're paying the drywall crew to rebuild it.
exactly.
That is a total financial loss for that room.
It's a catastrophic rework. But with TQM, that wiring is inspected and verified against the data standards before the first piece of drywall is even ordered. Finding the error early saves exponential amounts of money.
Wow.
And this proactive posture extends to massive existential threats through risk mitigation.
Like the bridge project, the source material dissects.
Right. Before a single shovel hits the dirt, a TQM-driven firm conducts exhaustive geotechnical risk assessments. They aren't just assuming the ground can hold the bridge.
They are running deep soil vulnerability analyses.
Yes, because if you discover a subterranean fault line or unstable soil halfway through building a suspension bridge, the project is essentially dead in the water.
You are looking at years of litigation and hundreds of millions in sunk costs.
Exactly. Proactive risk mitigation identifies that vulnerability in the design phase, allowing the engineers to pivot to a deeper foundational piling strategy before the budget is even committed.
Man, so all of these internal mechanisms, the supply chain logistics, the early defect detection, the soil analysis, they all compound.
And they compound into the ultimate external benefit, which is customer satisfaction. Delivering a project of that magnitude on time and without asking the client for an extra $10 million because you had to rip out drywall.
That generates the ultimate currency in a competitive market,
Yeah.
positive referrals.
Exactly. But to achieve that flawless delivery, you really have to master the team collaboration aspect. Think about a mixed-use development project.
Okay.
You have architects in one firm, structural engineers in another, and contractors on the ground. Under traditional models, an architect might tweak a design for an HVAC shaft, and the contractor might not find out until they've already poured the concrete slab.
Yikes.
Under TQM communication protocols, that design change is pushed immediately to the tablets of every stakeholder on the ground, updating the blueprint in real time.
So what does this all mean? We have a methodology that clearly works. The financial logic is totally sound. It prevents massive bridge delays. It eliminates the need for expensive urban staging areas, and it stops disastrous reworks.
Right.
The natural glaring question for me is, if the ROI is this undeniable, why isn't every single construction firm on the planet operating with flawless TQM? Why are our cities still full of projects that go wildly over budget and take 5 years longer than promised?
Well, this raises an important question, and the source material doesn't shy away from the harsh reality of implementation. The methodology is perfect on paper, but it collides with the friction of human nature.
And deeply entrenched organizational habits.
Precisely. The text outlines 3 major, often fatal, human roadblocks: resistance to change, lack of training, and insufficient management commitment.
Well, the resistance to change part makes perfect sense to me. I mean, it's like trying to get a stubborn family to switch to a new shared digital calendar app.
Well, that's a good comparison.
Everyone hates it at first. They fear the unknown and they cling to their old, messy routines. And construction is an industry built on muscle memory and deeply ingrained generational practices. You are dealing with tradesmen who have done things a specific way for 30 years.
And You are walking onto their site and telling them that their 30 years of experience is going to be replaced by an algorithm and a tablet.
Right. It's not just a passive preference, it's active hostility. People fear the unknown. They worry about job security. If an algorithm is telling the crane operator where it'll be, does the foreman even have a job anymore?
It's a very real fear.
And beyond the fear, there is immense skepticism. Every worker has lived through some corporate initiative where some VP came down, handed out safety vests with a new slogan, and then vanished.
You're hitting on the core friction. Construction relies on a very rigid traditional hierarchy. Bottom-up changes, where a worker suggests a workflow change, are often met with a massive ego response from middle management.
The whole, we do it this way because I'm the boss and I said so mentality.
Exactly.
So how do you actually force that cultural shift? You can't just mandate it in an email.
No, you have to manufacture ownership. Leadership must communicate a clear, existential vision. Something like, we change or we lose the contract. But more importantly, they have to involve the most skeptical employees in the pilot programs.
Oh, I see.
If the veteran foreman helps design the new process mapping for the steel delivery, he becomes its fiercest defender.
Which flows right into the second roadblock, lack of training. Because even if that foreman is willing to use the new software, if he doesn't actually understand the UI, he's going to get frustrated, declare the system broken, and go right back to his clipboard.
The source states clearly that inadequate training is where TQM goes to die. Employees misinterpret the metrics. They don't know how to analyze the workflows.
And that leads to massive systemic disengagement, right?
Yes. If a worker doesn't understand exactly how this new data entry task improves their specific daily grind, they'll just pencil whip the forms.
They'll just check the boxes to get management off their back without actually doing the quality checks. So the solution has to be way more robust than a, 2-hour orientation.
It requires a massive capital investment in continuous integration. It is practical tool application on the actual site under real conditions.
Right.
And crucially, it requires establishing internal mentorship programs so there is always a resident expert on the crew to troubleshoot the new systems in real time, preventing the workflow from freezing up.
But I imagine none of that training or cultural integration actually happens if the leadership doesn't genuinely care, which is the third and probably most fatal roadblock. Insufficient management commitment.
Oh, it's the ultimate failure point. When leadership views TQM as a marketing buzzword rather than a core operating system, the repercussions are immediate. You get starvation of resources.
Like they won't approve the budget for the advanced software or the training hours.
Exactly. And you get wildly inconsistent messaging. A CEO might stand on a podium and declare that quality is the #1 priority, but when a project falls 2 weeks behind schedule,
that same CEO is screaming at the site manager to just pour the concrete regardless of the defect reports.
And the moment that happens, accountability evaporates. The employees watch management, bypass the safety protocols for speed, and they internalize the lesson. The rules don't actually matter.
And TQM collapses back into chaos.
Right. To combat that, the framework demands that organizations anchor their TQM metrics directly to their core business objectives and executive bonuses.
Oh, hit them in the wallet.
Exactly. You have to train the leadership to be aggressive advocates for the system and institute relentless progress reviews. It is a continuous, exhausting journey.
Yeah, it really sounds like it.
It is not about reaching compliance. It is about cultivating a culture of excellence that constantly redefines its own baseline.
It is genuinely a masterclass in organizational psychology, masquerading as an engineering textbook, which brings us back to you, the listener. Whether you are leading a massive restructuring, managing a delicate launch, or just trying to systematize the chaos of a personal endeavor, the insights from this deep dive apply. TQM proves that true lasting quality is never an accident. It is the deliberate, aggressive result of empowering the people on the front lines, relentlessly mapping your processes, and having the courage to look at the data and dismantle the way you've always done things.
It requires an absolute, unwavering commitment to removing the guesswork from the equation.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up today's deep dive, there is one final lingering concept inspired by the source material that we want to leave you with. We've spent the entire time talking about eliminating chaos, but there's a flip side to that coin.
There is, and it's a tension that the industry is quietly wrestling with.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the entire TQM methodology relies heavily on standardized processes, tracking KPIs, and utilizing rigorous data to ruthlessly eliminate defects and deviations.
Right. The goal is to make the construction process hyper-predictable.
But this raises a profound question. If an entire industry becomes utterly consumed with hyper-predictable processes and achieving absolute zero deviation from the standard, could that relentless pursuit of process-centric perfection inadvertently leave no room for the intuitive, unmapped creative leaps?
Oh, wow.
Because groundbreaking architectural design often relies on pushing boundaries that haven't been tested yet. If you engineer a system that instantly eliminates all deviation, do you also risk eliminating the genius?
That is something to think about the next time you find yourself trying to perfectly optimize every single aspect of your own life. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the foundations of TQM. Keep questioning the blueprints in front of you, keep seeking out those aha moments, and we'll catch you next time as we unpack another incredible topic.